Hello. Welcome to the show.
More on that developing story later.
It gives me absolutely no pleasure to announce that because of this morning's events, we will not be spending all day debating what weight TJ Sanders should play at. Perfect world, we would be fielding calls on that subject. I had a poll scheduled for 3:08, the usual time. 290? 295? 300? Other, please tweet me a 3-digit number in that case. If you click other, that's what you're supposed to do.
308 even could be a selection.
I am as disappointed as you are, believe me.
Yeah.
Who do we send flowers to? Everybody involved?
Everybody involved. I think everybody involved, everybody involved deserves a hat tip. I guess I want to
I wouldn't want to leave Brandon Beane out of it.
No, definitely not.
Because, it was real. And isn't that what we always want and we often don't get is real? How long has he been carrying around? One of these days, I'm coming back with the Allen pick. And it was 7 years.
Yep.
But it wasn't 7 until it was sort of proven right, if you will. 5, 4. One of these days, I thought that was like maybe the most amazing thing about this morning. We've talked about that topic every day for 3 months, if not 3 years. And I think you do this. I know I do this every time. It comes with the preface. They're pretty good without another wide receiver. Like they're pretty good.
Right.
Like we always make that point.
Yeah.
I hope anybody listening, would recognize that.
Yeah, he's definitely got scoreboard.
Which makes it all the more bizarre.
In more ways than one. I mean, they've got the record, they've got 5 straight division titles, and all the points they scored last year with an offense that did not have, well, they did, though. See, this is the thing for me. Like, I'm sorry. I do try to. I don't just decide I'm going to feel this way or that way. I try to take cues, and maybe I miss them. Maybe I'm wrong. How I interpret things doesn't have to be right, and maybe this is an example of that. But Cooper, absolutely Cooper. Like, they did do that. I said that all through the draft season. They 2 guys out, 1 guy in. Neither guy is, the replacement for Cooper, I guess, Palmer, and he's not as accomplished as Cooper was when he got here. Put out of your mind what Cooper did when he got here and think about what they were trying to do. Get somebody because they needed that juice. So that, to me, is a cue that they knew they needed more after they went through the summer, and they went out and acted on it. And then the other thing to me that sort of pushed me to not just dismiss receiver even as early as 30, although I would admit it would have been a stunner even ahead of the draft if they had done that, and they didn't. They didn't even come close. They didn't pick a receiver until their very last pick.
Nobody fell either.
Right.
At 30.
Right. So,
not that matters.
But still, the way they talked, Beane and McDermott both, about Coleman and even Kincaid to an extent as the season ended, about needing to learn how to fight through adversity and getting stronger and bigger so you're not as susceptible to injury in the case of Kincaid. Coleman was more the former comment I just made. That was another thing that, to me, that was a clue. You're telling me you sound like you're not sure how much you want to count on these guys. So what am I going to do out here? I'm going to go, I'm not sure how much I want to count on these guys. I might need more. And so that was why I never wanted to give up on an early, pushback on Sale, saying the first 3 picks. I mean, as it turned out, he couldn't have been more right. They waited until what? When did they finally draft someone, the tight end in round 5? It's the first time they picked someone who wasn't a defender.
Tight end is even defense adjacent.
I guess, especially his calling card is blocking.
5 years at Yale, and he wasn't done. That's defense adjacent right there. That guy could play some nose tackle, I bet.
So anyway, I'm not trying to use their behavior as some defense. I mean, to me, it's an entirely defensible position that you thought they needed more juice at receiver. And I'm just telling you, the way I interpreted how they sounded led me there. I don't know how thirsty I was, but I got thirstier for a receiver after they talked about their guys at the end of the season. And I don't know, that could have been some honesty and the board didn't fall right. so they couldn't do anything that they would have liked to do.
But he wouldn't have sounded like he did today if that was the case.
Or you just didn't
Defiant.
prioritize it.
Defiant.
Right.
We finally had some words. I say finally. I mean, it was to the extreme. We finally had some words from Brandon Beane and the Bills that align with their actions. I mean, the actions, not to gloss over the Cooper point, but in the draft, it's been a discussion, whether it's the draft or a trade or whatever, like, it's always been debatable. Has it been enough, right? It's been great. Their offense has been great, but, where's the Xavier Worthy, if you will? Where's any guy? Where's the guy that you just can, there's no doubt he's going to be here a long time. He's going to go down in history as Allen's guy. And so far, the only guy close to doing that is Diggs, which, Diggs was great. So you finally got some real words, not just way, way, way beyond we're happy with our guys, just we'll see what happens. Anything can happen. Just the sort of the usual stuff. And I appreciate that. There's nothing here from me, and I know from you, that's going to be like, some people, everybody's talking about it. Oh, well, you have to appreciate his passion and his honesty. I got that tweet. No, or his right to say it. Nobody's questioning any of that.
Right.
That certain things are a given, and that you'd only want to question the Bills' general manager's passion if you didn't think there was any. Not that there would be too much. I mean, that's not even a discussion. The discussion is, actually, I'm not even sure the discussion is the point of the argument. At this, it's been argued so many times, and what the Bills have or haven't done was reinforced by the way Beane described it. We can safely say they weren't sniped on Ibuka or somebody. Like, they were just not, they didn't think it was important. That's important enough. Mm-hmm. That's the essence of it. The essence of it always has been the feeling by some, and I share it, that the Bills don't think the position of wide receiver is as important as so many others. I would say largely the analytics community. I think fans are split. We're seeing that. But, for years, a certain faction of the football world and the fan base have been, as you know, if you listen, waiting for them to make like a move that, like capital M move at that position since Diggs. And really nothing has come close enough to warrant.
Cooper was the biggest swing, I would say.
Cooper was a swing.
Unless you think drafting a receiver with your first pick last year outweighs Cooper. Maybe that's a push. I don't know. They're both significant tries. It's a third-round pick for Cooper, a guy who's got the resume of a number one receiver, which you had just traded away in the spring in Diggs.
Well, can I say here, it's always two things. I'm just sort of taken back to the time when Marv Levy was running their draft. And who were the guys? Dockery, Langston, Walker? No, was he a Bill?
That's it, yeah.
There were three big lineman ads. And we would hear, because their offensive line was still not good.
When are you going to address it?
When are you going to address the offensive line? And I would always say they did. They have. It's not just investing in it. It's doing it successfully. And the Bills have invested at wide receiver. We got the other day to how much does Samuel make? And what has he been good for? How much does, Coleman on his deal? What does he count for? Kincaid in his part? How much is Palmer? All these guys. And who's actually going to be good? And Shakir even, who, he's fine. He's good and he got really paid. What is that going to, is that going to be 3 touchdowns? Like, what is that going to be, Shakir? That's a pretty good investment at the position, if you include Kincaid, which I am, pass catchers. And then the debate is like, well, has it been bad actually? Like the quarterback won the MVP and so on and so on and so on. I think the most telling thing about this morning is that Beane is like seemingly really on edge about it. Because, I don't know, think about how you would be. Everybody's different. It could get to you. You know that the narrative is out there. You know that you're talking to people who have pushed it. Like, you could lose it. One of these times, you could snap. The draft is just over. You're exhausted. You didn't get a good grade somewhere. And be like, listen, can I just defend myself out loud here? Tell you what I'm really thinking. Bam. But you could also be this again. What's my record? How did the season end? Like, we felt we needed defense a lot more badly. Next, just simply, okay, I understand your complaint, but we think we know what we're doing. We've had a lot of success, and our defense needed a lot of new help. So that's what we did. And what do you say to that?
I mean, okay. I hope it works, right? I hope it works. I hope you get some guys that can play and help you. I highly doubt you're going to turn into what the Eagles did to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl in one off season, but you got to start somewhere. So, yeah, I don't know. I did not get up today or spend any part of yesterday really upset, even bothered by how they drafted. I mean, would I have liked a receiver on Saturday at some point, in the 4th round, the 5th round or something?
Not the 7th?
Sure. Yeah, I would have liked that. But it doesn't. I really like the first 4 picks, to be honest with you. The Arkansas edge guy was somebody that I thought they might have to pick in the 2nd round, and to get him where they did, that was after they maneuvered, right? Moved up to get the first D tackle they picked and ended up with a 3rd as part of that and got that guy. I like those first 4 picks. I think those first 4 picks are going to be on the field this year for the Bills. I don't know about the rest of it, but they set out to remake their depth chart really here. I mean, they've got young DBs here in those later rounds, and so they've got an opportunity to sort of reset here. And I'm fine with all that.
A 1st and a 6th at corner is, wink emoji.
Right.
Elam and Benford.
That worked out well last time. Well, okay. I mean, it worked out well enough with the 6th. I mean, obviously the 1st was a pretty big mess.
It's cute.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I now I feel like the whole thing is on trial today because of what happened this morning. More than just this draft singularly. I wonder what pushed Beane to it. Is it been stewing? He mentions in there, I think even in the clip that we played, that he felt like there were a few people in the room at the news conference wrapping up the draft that sort of were picking, something tripped a wire for him.
Reporters,
because he says reporters that were sort of going there, but maybe they didn't get all the way there. So maybe he was ready for that and just decided to just lay it down like he did.
Or maybe he considers Jeremy and Joe reporters, which would be wrong.
Correct, right. Yeah, I don't want to even get into speculating about something like that. I have no idea.
But just the Bills have had a lot of success. End of the day, though they haven't won in the playoffs, when it mattered the most, they've won playoff games. You gotta respect that. And ultimately, that's the thing. They've been very successful. It's not the drought. But there were times, even into McDermott, where they would say things that would be like, oh my God, they're never going to get there. It's like when they drafted Allen and big hands and weather and just ground and pound in those years. And they're just never going to wake up and realize the greatest years in the history of the Bills were predicated on an unstoppable offense. And, in the same stadium, believe it or not, somehow in this climate, that happened, and that's 30 years ago. Are they ever going to get there? They do. They fall into it. I don't know. This is the kind of day that takes me back. This isn't fantasy football, Beane says. Okay, so again, to you, on some level, offense is fantasy football. Having a good passing game, having a great receiver, that's just not real football. Is that what anybody's saying? Is that fair at all?
It's definitely not what I'm saying, because I think I could not care less about fantasy football.
Well, it just isn't.
Right. When I get to I need more stuff, it's not because I want a guy that is gonna be a story in your world. I don't care. Just I want a guy because I want to be as good as I can be. That's it. And I know that's what Brandon Beane wants too, but
it's so condescending.
Yes, that was exactly the word I was just gonna use. It is so condescending to people who play fantasy and not.
It's I don't even take it that way. I mean, it's just sort of, you think points are what? Not really how you win. And I know he knows that they averaged 30 points, and they did that, but it's still like in his head, it's, well, this isn't fantasy football. Recently, this sort of tweaked me when, like, you're talking about speed all the time, right?
Yeah.
They pass on Worthy and get to Coleman, and yikes at this point. And Worthy was the fastest guy at the combine. He's not for us. And he says recently, Beane, this isn't track. Sir, we know. Nobody is saying it's track. It's just another way of sort of poking at anybody who thinks, well, speed is good and may be vital to success, and everything else, like fantasy football, I don't know. Didn't go great. I all the stuff I think doesn't really need to be said about, well, passion, honesty, real. I'm glad for it.
Yeah.
I owe thanks to some people here because I don't know if this won't be what we talk about all summer.
Well, sure.
The fact that he revealed what he did about sort of, he's maybe tight on Coleman right now and Kincaid and like Elam. Recent drafts.
He's put himself and those players on the spot by handling today the way he chose to handle today.
I think so.
I think that's an opinion, but I really believe that. I think the pressure goes up on those guys now, and that's fine. Like, again, maybe they're ready to take that step, and okay, great. But again, like I predicated a lot of where I was looking for help for this team this offseason on how they sounded about what they had. And so, again, I can be wrong in interpreting it the way I did, but his own clues sort of led me to, they still need, they know they need one more piece, right? Field stretcher, whatever it is. But didn't find it this weekend. Okay, but I don't know. I didn't hear the whole morning show today. Need to be said, right? So I wasn't up to hear what preceded 8:30. But so I don't know how much they were complaining, like what set Beane off. It might have just been a couple of minutes with Sal, I think, is the way it sounded. Like at the end of Sal's appearance right before Beane, whatever they were talking about there is what I think Beane was reacting to. Because, I would guess, like, I know how much they feel the receiver idea. The wide receiver training all the stuff, but I find it hard to believe they were just sitting here clobbering him and them for the draft.
Yeah, no.
So that's what Beane sort of made it out like that was what was happening, and I just that would stun me.
It's hilarious, I think, that they brought in Elijah Moore today for a visit the day after the draft or the Monday after the draft, because on some level they're looking for help at the position. Elijah Moore, to me, I wonder what Joe would say. To me, he's the guy that started it. Whatever year that was, 21, whatever draft that was, maybe even earlier than that. But I feel like Elijah Moore was the player when maybe it ends up at Rousseau and Basham. I hope I have the year right. And we were talking about Elijah Moore and Rondale Moore in that draft. And there were other guys. I'm like, man, wouldn't it be great if the Bills added to Diggs and Davis with like a smaller speed, like this guy, now, as they say, cooking with gas, right? So they don't, and their offense has still had a ton of success. But to me, he is literally the player I think of for when the so-called train got rolling. Right. It started with Elijah Moore. The day 2 trade, I wanted them to figure out a way to get into the third round, and they do by that trade. 15 picks up for an interior defensive lineman. You got him a third, right?
Right.
They got him a third.
Right.
I just hardly ever heard about the player. I don't know that he wasn't on boards and whatnot. When they did it, we had a few minutes to sit with it when they did it. I thought it was going to be Ezeraku. To me, that was the guy who, by consensus and need and everything put together, okay, I can see trading up for that guy. Because even though you want inside more than edge, I can see it. Like, I can live with that. Instead, I don't know. There are other ways to get a third-round pick. But what? We're not going to know anything about results here for a long time. We've got to come to grips with that. We're not going to have results, for a long time on any of it. We talked about Maxwell Hairston on Friday. They do add another corner. There is a receiver in the end. I don't know. I'm sure it wasn't meant to be funny, but Caden Prather out of Maryland at pick 240. 3 offensive players, tight end,